Yo, and welcome to the 50th episode of Lake of Rage, a Pokemon trading card game podcast. I am your host, as always, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp, and I'm joined today by two very special returning guest hosts. Joining us and going to Salt Lake City Regionals, we have Rahul Reddy.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Rahul.
And joining us, not going to Salt Lake City Regionals, but going to Liverpool Regionals in the next week, we have Pedro Torres, aka Senichi18.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
So we got a very special episode for you this week. We're going to be talking about all things the current meta heading into Salt Lake City. What's good? What's not good? What's the play? What shouldn't you play? All that kind of good stuff. And maybe any other regional advice that either of these two people have for us. But first, and most importantly, I want to give a big congratulations to Natalie Miller, our guest on last week's podcast, for winning with the exact deck that she told us she was going to play, which was Mew VMAX with 4 Rotom phones, which is apparently the second best card in the deck behind Ultra Ball. So big shout out to Natalie for winning Brisbane. If you listen to the episode, I don't think anyone who listened should be surprised by that. She was incredibly confident that it beat absolutely everything, and it did. It beat Duraludon in the finals despite playing 0 basic energies, which is kind of ridiculous. Yep. But I'm sure we'll get into that kind of stuff as we kind of talk about the meta heading forward. Because first, Pokemon just tweeted breaking news for the first time ever in the history of a Pokemon podcast. We have breaking news.
At 8 p.m. Eastern.
That's the best part. Even this 5 p.m. This is quitting time on the Pacific Coast.
Yeah, someone was like, I'm going to slam this tweet and I'm done for the day. See you guys.
Play Pokemon just tweeted out that there is going to be 2 separate streams for Salt Lake City Regionals. One for VGC starting at 10:45 Pacific time. And I'm not converting that for anyone because that's where I live and that's what I care about. And one for TCG starting at 11:30 a.m. So this will be the first regional that we've had streamed since Collinsville.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct.
That's exciting. Pedro, are you going to tune in?
Yes, I was actually sad that Brisbane had no stream, right? Because it was a really good weekend to see the first regional after 2 years without being able to play official events. So yeah, that's actually really good news. That looks like we will have a stream this weekend. So I'm kind of excited to see good players playing on stream in real life and to see which decks they bring, because they definitely gonna help me to decide my play for Liverpool after that potential results in this weekend. Yeah.
So you're letting us do all the testing for you?
Well, I'm also testing, I guess. But of course, that meta will decide a lot for Liverpool too, I guess, because people will now in this era that you can check results in 1 second in internet. People will normally copy paste lists or just try to beat that meta again or just play the same meta, right? So that actually will be super relevant, in my opinion.
No, I think you're 100% right. It's so easy to just go copy and paste a list, and I've done it. I've done it for regionals, and I've done it successfully at the regionals too. So it's definitely not even like a negative thing necessarily. It works out pretty darn well. But then that lets people like you and Rahul, who are really that next level metagaming sometimes, make those moves. So do we think heading into Salt Lake City, going back to Brisbane, those results, do we think that's going to make a big difference? Like, are people going to go net decking Natalie or net decking anyone else out of the top cut? Or are we going to see some differences? Or like, how is it going to be affecting that metagame?
I think for sure people will copy Natalie's list because Natalie's list was very unique with the 3 double turbo. It was very refined. When a group like that, like a group of like 4 or 5 players that are that level of like world caliber, play one deck, they put the time into it. And with Natalie winning the event, Kaiwin getting top 4, and Brent getting top 16, they produce results. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So people are probably going to copy and paste it. And I think it's going to come down to a couple of like preferential changing your cards, what to do. But the biggest thing with those kinds of lists is going to be, can you pilot it well? Like obviously when a deck like that is played, everyone now knows the list. Everyone knows what's going on. Can you go into like a very hostile room?
Pedro, what do you think? If you were coming to Salt Lake, how heavily would you be considering the Brisbane results, and how much do you think that's going to affect what most players will be bringing?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to see that results, because we already know before the regionals that Mew is the best deck in the format, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, is unbalanced if we compare with other decks. Because the potential going first and going second, right? Just going first, you can boss turn 2 a V kinda easy. Going second, you can KO whatever in the active kinda easy too, especially with the triple this double turbo energy to spam attacks. I mean, we can see like how in the finals Natalie beats Duraludon, I guess. That is a Pokemon that prevents damage from special energies. When you play only special energies and you still win the finals, it's absurd how good the deck is, right? So I think a lot of people will probably bring Mew because the deck is, in my opinion, the best deck in the format. It won the last regionals, and in my opinion, has like a lot of difference between Mew and the other decks. So it's a solid deck. It's a really good deck. So even winning that regional for sure, people will bring that deck and probably not a released. So maybe that that makes people playing or trying to counter that version with maybe Ibeltal and one press attackers or stuff like try to punish Mew players. And like Rahul said, it's super important. You can copy paste the list, but I think Mew is really hard to play correctly. So that also will be an important factor in the regional.
So heading into the regional, is this like, so Mew is clearly the BDIF. I think everyone has been saying forever, it's just, it is the best deck in this format. It is not impossible to counter necessarily, but it sure seems like it's impossible to counter. Are we going to see something like Seattle Regionals 2017, where Drampa Garb had just come out and it was like 25 out of the top 32 decks? It won the regional. It was all over the place. It was just like absolutely dominant. Is Mew that level of dominant where you're expecting it to make up half of the top 32 or half of top 8 again, if not more? Like, where are we thinking that level of dominance is going to come into play?
I think, like, for sure, when we get to like top 8, about half will probably be Mew. With top 32, I don't know if half will be Mew, just because when there's so many people playing a certain deck, it doesn't mean that the conversion rate is going to be great. And I don't expect every top player to pick up Mew. I expect, even in those kinds of metagames, some players would pick up like decks because they're stubborn, and they'll pick something else up, and that might happen once again here. But if a majority of top players end up playing Mew, I think that'll skew the results in one way over the other.
I feel a little called out on the stubborn because I was just on stream playing right before this. I was playing various Moltres variants.
In that 2017 format, I was the bees guy, so I also was stubborn. So I know I know exactly.
How'd that go for you?
I top 32, and then I didn't win games.
Pedro, what about you? Do you think this is like that Drampa Garb level of pure dominance?
Well, I only played since 2016. I mean, played for like 4 years competitively, and now waiting 2 years without competing. Well, just online random tournaments. But that was actually surprising. You know how dominant was that deck. But for what I played so far in these years, I didn't see yet a big difference between the best deck and the next deck. So in my opinion, it's even more dominance, the powerful of Mew, with the other decks. Even decks that try to counter Mew and you play a deck just to win against Mew, you don't beat a good Mew player. That's how powerful Mew it is, right? Because it has healing, it has one press attackers, multiple one press attackers, it has 20 protection for Oricorio, it has all the answers to even one press attacker decks that want to counter Mew. So I guess the dominance is even higher than Drampador in that era, because okay, it was a good deck, right? But the games were closed because N, Garbotoxin. Now, if Mew wins the coin flip, the games are not even close. Like, I'm considering in Liverpool, if I face Mew and I lose the coin flip, if my opponent just Boston 2 just try to win the other 2 games, because there is no point to continue playing that game no matter the deck I play. Like, the Limitless guys and I try hard testing all the days, a lot of hours, and we cannot counter Mew yet. We didn't find anything because it's literally impossible. So it's kind of frustrating, yeah.
That is the most disappointing leak I've ever heard from a top tier testing group of just like, we don't know what counters this deck. But it's definitely one of those things, as I've been testing Arceus variants, because again, stubborn, want to not play Mew, I've resorted to, like, I have to play Raihan, so I don't scoop automatically when my Arceus that has the energy gets KO'd, which is, doesn't even help. Like, it helps technically, but it's one of those things that, like, scooping just might actually be the best play, because you're like, well, this still feels really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
So to go off of Natalie's list, I think the biggest thing that everyone that I've seen on Twitter who's trying it, playing in limitless tournaments has done is add more stadiums. Are you rocking in more than 2 stadiums if you're running Mew? Do you recommend people play more, or did the Australian group just figure it out? Is this the move?
I would never ever walk into a room with 2 stadiums, especially after it's out there. I think like one of the biggest ways that Mew will lose games against Arceus, especially going second, is if they just go path like attach pass, and like that's probably like a 40% chance that they find a path. I think my group did the math, and like it's like a close to 40% chance that they find path turn 1. And if you don't have a stadium like on that turn 1, you're actually gonna get rocked. So like for example, I played at my 1K this past weekend, and I tried a really weird, like very anti-path build with 4 stadiums and a peony. So I don't know if that's a little bit overkill, but I had games where if I didn't have the path, like the stadium in my opening hand, I would not have gotten to play the game as Mew. So I've already seen value out of what I wanted to do, and I can see myself like I think no less than 3 stadiums, like no less than 3 stadiums heading into Salt Lake. Yeah.
Have you considered flipping heads on Cram-O-Matic?
Not really good at coin flips, or I'd probably put catcher in my deck.
Pedro, what do you think of the 2 stadiums?
If I play Mew in a tournament, I will play 4 stadiums, for sure. Well, in my opinion, of course, congrats to Natalie and all the group that makes a really good result in Australia. He's like good player, good deck. It guarantees really good placement, right? Not only the win, just the top 4 of K1, top 8 and top 16 and top 32 of all the group, right? So, even with that deck winning, I don't like the deck list, but that's a personal preference. I don't like the deck list. I guess it was pretty good for that tournament because I guess the top 16 was full of 2 prize attackers or 3 prize attackers, right? It was Gengar, Muse, and Arceus, right?
Yep.
So that list of triple double turbo was pretty good for that. But in my opinion, I don't like the list because I guess you struggle a little more against 1 price attacker decks in general because it's not easier to do the Psychic Loop thing without basic psychics. So if I play, I won't play the list that Natalie and the group played because of that. Because I guess the better player you are, you want to actually try to cover all the stuff that you can, right? So I guess with Psychic Energies, you cover better the 1 price attacker decks. You actually, it's almost auto win if you play correctly with Psychic Energies. And you also, with 4 stadiums, cover better like Rahul said, the path to the big strategy. Because I guess the only losses to me, because Mew never bricks, right? In like 20 games, you maybe bricks 1, but in a best of 3, it's really hard to brick twice. So the only problem with the deck is 1 price attackers, that I like to fix that with basic energies, and the path to the peak, and you don't draw chromatic heads or stadium. So I prefer basic energies and 4 stadiums, but that's a personal preference. Of course, the power level of the deck is less power level, but with a skill, you can actually, try to battle that little problem to try to at least have a better chance against 1 price attack decks. But I guess even with that, I don't know if it was Natalie or Kaiwen, even with that list beats the 1 price attacker deck anyway. So the deck is just too strong no matter how you play. But yeah, I will play 4 stadiums and basic energies if I will play Mew,
It makes me feel a little bit better about myself too, because that's exactly where I've come to on my testing as well. Like I think that basic energies gives you way too much like flexibility and skill to play the matchup. And like Pedro said, like I played against a 1 prize single dark like deck this past weekend, and I think at the 47-minute mark I took my first prize. Coincidentally, I took all 6 in the same turn, or 5 in the same turn.
Did you Oricorio that thing?
Turbo is super good for that meta, right? When top 16 decks are all 2 or 3 price attackers, I agree. That was the perfect list for that, but you never know what you face,
Yeah, and I think people will be more prepared for the triple double turbo moving into this next 2 weekends.
So one more thing on Mew. I'm kind of curious because I don't get to talk to 2 of the best players who have actually tested a significant amount of Mew very often. we always hear Mew is a high skill deck. And as someone who doesn't play it that often, I'm well aware of it, because when I pick it up, it's like, oh yeah, this was a misplay on turn 3. I shouldn't have burned that power tablet, or I should have to draw one more card, stuff like this. But where does the skill with Mew really come into play? If someone's listening to this right now and they're like, I've been playing Mew and it feels fine, but maybe they are someone who just dumps their hand all the time, or they're like, this deck isn't skillful, I just go boom every turn. Where do those extra little pieces of skill come into play, and what are some things that someone who is playing Mew should consider? This is what I should be trying when I'm practicing. This stuff I should be paying attention to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. So what are some of those like highly skillful interactions that you can think of off the top of your head? I know that's a really tough, because it's technically it depends type answer. But Pedro, do you have anything? Because I see Rahul has a thinking face on.
Yeah, some tips. Like, I still don't feel myself good enough to play Mew correctly. I playtest a lot of Mew, and sometimes I win even doing misplays because the deck is just too good and too powerful, and it has no sense sometimes how you can pull up some attacks with even boss, because it's like Genesis is like multiple Shaming X every single turn, so it has literally no sense how that is even legal, right? So, but when you face a good player, so like when I test on the Limitless group and I play Mew, sometimes I feel I'm making little misplays that cost me the game against really good players, right? Because the games are decided by one turn that one of the both players whiff one card, right? So one of the tips, for example, that a lot of people do sometimes when I face them on online ladder, because I played a lot of online ladder. For example, is like a lot of people, when they see Elesa, they try to Elesa first and then Genesis draw, so you have less chance to draw, for example, the Fusion Energy, instead of drawing one less card with Genesect, but save the Elesa in hand, for example. Or sometimes people burn too much when you can just, all right, if you have everything that turn, you don't need to draw with Genesect because you can draw with Genesect. If you already have everything you need that turn, you can save that Ultra Ball, save that Chromatic, save that stuff to do that next turn that you probably will need more cards. Another tip that I made that misplay a lot of times is I discard my Battle VIP Pass after turn 2 a lot, and then when I draw Chromatic, I cannot Chromatic my Pokemon, right? So I was like, all right, I was laning to, with Ultra Ball, probably discard some Pokemon that I won't use anymore, like for Genesect or Thermio. And sometimes you want to save the Battle VIP Pass for potential Chromatic. So that's little stuff that could improve your gameplay, yeah.
Rahul, anything to add?
I think everything Pedro said is like very, very good. And just one other thing I probably want to add to that is just prize mapping. Like knowing past turn 1, exactly like where your win con is going to come from, like will help you significantly more with how many cards and what you're burning. Like for example, there'll be situations where you want to establish another Mew or a Meloetta or something, but in doing so, you'd have to burn like 2 or 3 tablets, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, if I do this, is there even a win con left for me? Do I have to sit here with this one Mew VMAX and hope that it can ride me to the win? And sometimes you have to just take that avenue. And like when the Mew is flowing on all cylinders, like the deck plays itself, and that's like why it's so broken. But when it's not, that's really where the true test of a player comes in, because you're having awkward discards, you're having awkward resource counting, and that's kind of where that last couple of like skill bits come into play.
To go with the power tablet one, this is one that I see a lot of Mew players, because again, I'm the one not playing Mew because I'm stubborn, willing to waste my $400 plane ticket, because get to hang out with the homies, right? But playing the Arceus decks, if I see a Mew player burn one tablet when they're not supposed to, I know that that's game over, because they will never get through enough Arceuses to actually win the game. I'll be able to pull off chair and stuff, path stuff, and they can't KO every single thing they need, even with an Echoing Horn, to win that game. So that prize mapping is absolutely huge, because if you know that you're going to have to get through, you didn't KO an Arceus V, you KO'd a Sobble, so you're going to have to get through at least one big charmed Arceus and have an Echoing Horn boss. You have to have every single thing ready to go. And if you waste one of those resources, it's kind of just GG's at that point, because every one of your opponents is going to know exactly how to beat Mew. You better know how to beat every one of your opponents.
I agree.
There was also a question from chat that I want to get to right now because it is Mew related. Captain Wonder asks, would you rather cut one Rotom phone or one Cramomatic? Or are those absolutely never play less than 4 of either of them?
If I would play Mew, I will play 4 Rotoms and 4 Chromatic because both cards, in my opinion, they are too good to not play. Even if I don't like coin flips, Chromatic is too good. Even if you flip tails, it helps the strategy of the deck to draw more with Geneset and discard your Battle VIP pass later. So even if you don't flip heads, the card is too good, even not hitting the heads. And if you hit heads, it's actually game changing. Sometimes you just win for that heads, or it gives you the turn 1 Battle VIP pass to play the game. Rotom Phone is the best card you can actually play against Path to the Peak. Is one of the 2 lose condition of Mew, right? It's Path to the Peak. Is one of the lose condition we talked before, and with Rotom Phone you save that. So I guess 4 of both are so important.
I also agree with Pedro. Like, I don't know which one to cut. My group spent a good bit of time testing no cram and no phone just to see if it would work fine, and it does work fine. It's just the games feel a little bit grindier. It feels like you're working a little bit harder, and why work harder where you can just play better cards is kind of, I think, the logic there. If anything, it'd probably be the cram. Like, if I had to, like, gunpoint, like I had to cut one, it's probably the cram would go to 3 over the phones, because I think phone is just like Pedro said, like you have 2 lose conditions and it negates one of them unless they're playing Judge.
Yeah, that's the other. So we saw Henry Brand and Mitch from the Sable Eyes, who got top 8 with the Arceus and Teleon, both rocking the Judge in their list. Are Path decks going to start playing Judge to play around that Rotom Phone? Is that an actual move, or is that just a meme that seems cool in theory?
Only in Teleon decks, I think.
I don't believe in the Judge, Path, and Pray because I want to win on prices. That's why I'm trying to test. It's hard. I'm not getting yet the way to beat Mew with that strategy. But I'm not a player that want to play a deck to counter Mew by Judge, Path, and Pray. I always, when I play Pokemon, I always think my opponent will have everything every turn. Because if you don't think that, you don't improve. So if your gameplay against Mew is like, I'm going to Judge, Path, and Pray, and if you win, you feel good, I think that's a problem. So in my opinion, you need to win by solid strategies and not pray the opponent draws or not draws. Because every time I play, it's like, I need to do my play considering that my opponent will do energy, boss, power tablet. Because if that doesn't happen, then I'm fine, right? So I don't like the strategy. Even if I can see that if you play a Path to the Peak deck, of course you need to join Judge. If you play that. Yeah.
So you're saying Judge isn't a meme if that's a strategy that you're going for?
Yeah, I would probably play a split of Marnis and Judge because Marnie is better, but Mew is really popular. So if I would play that decks of Prey, if you want to Prey with that strategy properly, you need to probably play a split of Marnis and Judge.
Got it. I'll throw a Judge in my deck.
Especially because Inteleon draws the Judge when you want it, of course.
Yeah. Do you agree, Rahul?
Yeah, I think it's like Pedro said, it's like not a great strategy by any means, but it is like your like Hail Mary, and it's not bad to have a Hail Mary at a -1. It just is every time you see that in the early game, it's gonna suck in your hand. Compared, like, one card makes a huge difference for Arceus decks, especially ones that run Inteleon. Yeah, so just I think it has more longevity in Inteleon decks, and if you're not playing Inteleon, like if you're playing like a quad Arceus deck or something, that's gonna be weird.
I agree 100% on the every time I play any of these decks, it's like it feels so bad of like Arceus's win condition so often is Path against Mew, but also it works sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, it works sometimes. I mean,
it's like that old Jolteon win condition why I never got into it of like, oh yeah, you just play 4 Path and 4 Marnie and eventually it sticks, right? It's like, well, sure, I guess technically.
It's like
except not.
uber scuffed Garb N.
Yeah, exactly. It's Garb N that you can both play around and they have more cards, and
yep.
Yeah, there's just a lot wrong with it.
It's like, for example, the example of Arceus. I'm testing a lot of Arceus, especially on streaming these days, like 3-4 hours a day, and then out of stream another 4, 5, 6 hours. I'm just waking up, testing, eating, sleeping, and testing again. And I'm trying a lot of Arceus because I like Arceus as a card. It's really flexible. And I start with 4 Path to the Peaks, right? And Marnies. Right now, I'm sure I will play 0 Path to the Peaks, and instead of that 4 cards, I will try to play cards that consistently give me the win, going first at least against me, right? So I'm playing like 4 bosses, 2 Luminions, 4 Ultra Balls, 4 Quick Balls. So if I go first and I get Arceus energy, I know I win by triple boss. And if I go second, I'm trying to make my deck at least 40-60 and have a little chance, like triple big charm and stuff like that, right? So I started with the path to the big plan. And when every time the opponent just top deck everything, I was like, no, I'm gonna just put 4 cards that I want to win by prices. So I'm kind of close to the list that if I go first and I get Arceus Energy, I win with triple boss. And if I go second, well, we're still trying to beat Mew, yeah.
I'm amazed at how often Arceus, and I guess we're going to start getting into the not Mew decks now, but I'm amazed how often Arceus whiffs the turn 1 Arceus Energy, despite having the 4 Quick Ball, 3 or 4 Ultra Balls, 4 Arceuses, and, you know, like 10 to 12 energies. It's like, how do I keep missing?
All the time. Yeah.
I think it's the worst. Right before this started, I had just whiffed with an Arceus deck, and I was just like, chat, why am I evolving my Pokemon? Why is this ever a thing I want to do? Like, because even Mew doesn't have to evolve. You got Meloetta. Like, you're fine. So let's get into the not Mew stuff real quick in a little more detail. What are some of the decks? So let's say you're adamantly against Mew. It is against everything in your moral fiber, or just for whatever reason you don't want to play Mew. What are some of those other considerations that you think are real decks? What are we pairing with Arceus? Are we single strike roaring to anything? Or what are we rapid strike tentacling? Like, what are some of those other decks? Rahul, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I can give like an honest top 5, I guess, for me. If like tomorrow, like I had to lock in decks, I had like 12 hours. The final 5 decks I'd probably be testing are obviously Mew starts the list. It would be Arceus Inteleon, I think, would go into number 2. I don't know how I'd like when I do the dark package, the water package, like what I want to do with that. I don't know just quite yet. And also like a 2.5 is like Arceus Urshifu is a deck that I want to try. It does not have a great Mew matchup, but it clobbers the hell out of other Arceus decks. And if I can just say, hey, maybe I'm not going to hit enough Mew, and I can beat the counters to Mew, like you'll beat all the single price decks, you'll beat all the Mew, like the Mew counters, and you'll ride your way to the top. You might have a great shot at winning the tournament, but if you hit the right counter matchups, it's like one of those big brain decks. It's just you have the potential to just go 0-3 by hitting 3 Mews in a row. That's just unfortunate. And then my third is probably Gengar VMAX. I think Gengar is surprisingly good if you can get to turn 3. The problem is Gengar does not get to turn 3 very often. But if you do, you're very strong. And with Path, you can just slam a Path, get like a B-Barrel up and running, and one Houndoom, and you're pretty much good to play the game. And then I don't really actually have a 5. I don't know why I said 5. But 4 is probably Rapid Strike Inteleon, which is a deck I want to try out. I think Rapid Strike Inteleon has a place because people are bad with resources. RCS players can't one-shot the deck. And if you play like a deck like that has heavy healing, low maintenance, and a lot of damage, it could be very, very strong, I think, in the right metagame.
That's definitely one that sounds strong in theory. And the keyword's theory. Rapid Strike Inteleon's always been a theory deck.
Yes.
But like, because Arceus, when you play the mirror match and you're able to Charons, you're like, oh, this deck is like really good and it's amazing and I love this, right? But that deck is a little more consistent at getting that off than it feels like not the Arceus Inteleon, the Rapid Strike Inteleon is for sure. So Pedro, what are some of the ones that you're thinking about?
I'm definitely tryharding Arceus. I will probably play Arceus on Liverpool because, well, when we will talk later about why play Mew and why not play Mew. I will answer why. I probably want to play Mew, even if I bought my Mews. I would probably want to play them. So I'm tryharding Arceus to try to have at least a chance against Mew. So yeah, I kind of agree with Rahul almost all the top 5. I guess Arceus is number 2. Arceus variants like Melony or just Dark, or you can run it with Inteleon, B-Barrel, or Chinchino. We're still not sure what is the best engine. We tryharding a lot of Inteleon, Chinchino, and B-Barrel. We still don't know what is the best, but I guess we'll figure out soon. Agree that Gengar, when Gengar setups, beats Arceus and beats Mew if you set up properly. So Gengar is definitely top 3. I already tried Gengar with like 4 money, for reset, for Quick Ball, for Ultra Ball, for Battle BP Pass. But sometimes Gengar is clunky, right? That's Arceus and Mew are more consistent. So that's because of top 3. And yeah, top 5 will probably be yeah, I agree. Rapid Strike Inteleon has some potential. I guess we still didn't try enough, but yeah, Mew sometimes could struggle because people, like Raul said, threw some resources, and if you can spam Cheryl with some Chinchinos or like you can put like Chinchino or Inteleon Engine, and then healing, and then snipe is pretty good. And I guess Jolteon is super good right now because Urshifu disappeared. Urshifu actually won the last online regional, the Sakli sorry, Meta 5 regionals. Jolteon won because Urshifu disappeared, and Jolteon is actually pretty good because it has the path to the peak strategy that could work. It attacks for 1 energy, fighting disappear completely, and no one plays Manaphy. So Jolteon for sure will join in the top 5, in my opinion, because it has a complicated matchup against Mew, but we saw in the tournament how, path to the peak and 300 HP twice could be annoying for me, right? So yeah, I will put Jolteon in that list.
So I want to go off Jolteon real quick because I put out a YouTube video saying what I thought were some of the top 5 decks for what's it called? Salt Lake City. And I put Jolteon at number 4, and this was pre the Metafy tournament because it felt like it was in a very good place. And then Sunday I was testing a bit, and right before leaving, my friend, shout out Captain Wonder, one of my Twitch mods, was like, here, take the Jolteons just in case you change your mind. So unsell me on Jolteon, please. Can either of you tell me why is Jolteon not the move for Salt Lake City? Pedro, or Rahul.
No, Pedro can go first.
Well, I'm biased because I really like Arceus, so I, of course, will tell you that Arceus is the play. Why Jolteon is not the play? I mean, Jolteon is really fun to play. You cannot play opponents, right, with healing, no healing, boss targets, sniping. It's actually a really funny deck, and it's super strong right now because Manaphy is not popular. But if you want a reason to not play Jolteon, is that if you play Jolteon, you will face every round someone with Manaphy every single round, right? And you don't want that. So if Jolteon didn't win the regional, the online regional, then if he's out of the radar, it's a pretty good play, right? No one expected, no one touched against Jolteon. But now, with some days ago, a lot of people will put that Manaphy just in case, right? And that's, you can beat Manaphy, but it's gonna be a hard time.
Do we just assume that RK9 is going to automatically pair you with everyone who has a Manaphy in your deck?
Yeah.
When I play one tech, it's like, well, if I join this tech, I will face that. But if I don't play that tech, I will face all the decks. So that's always happens.
Rahul, unsell me on Jolteon, please.
I think the way I look at the game right now is tempo. And when you look at how like the tempo works, is how many attacks you need to win a game, how many prizes can you take with a certain attack. And Jolteon always feels like it's like a -1 or -2 turn tempo compared to every other deck, regardless of like how good the deck is. So a lot of Jolteon's strategy is going to revolve around path Marnie, having to stick for a turn, then go into a boss while the path is still up, and need that boss to maybe last more than a turn, or boss a separate target and get that off. So it's a lot of hoping. And when the word hope comes into the equation, I immediately don't like that. And it is something I did bring up in my testing group as well. After I saw that it won the online regionals, I was like, hey, maybe this is like a consideration. Maybe we bring this back onto the table because last format I was on the Jolteon train because I did not have Mew cards. And I just feel like the tempo of every other deck has gotten significantly better. Arceus is just kind of a really big pain in your side because you don't really have great boss targets anymore for any deck if you play against Arceus. And Mew is just faster. It's just faster than it was before. And while they can't do 300 twice, they can very reasonably... Okay, like, if you just have Oricorio and you go Fusion Oricorio, you just cannot lose the game.
Yeah, that is
like, it should be near impossible to lose the game.
See, and that's a fair too. Okay, I'll give you that one. Mew is 300 is not a very hard number for them to hit with Choice Belt. One more deck I wanted to mention, because, and if you've seen me, you know that I'm really into this one. Why should I not play Hoopa Moltres for Salt Lake City Regionals? Why? This is the BDIF, right? See, Pedro's shaking his head yes. Pedro's into the Hoopa Moltres.
Like, you want an answer of why you do not play, right?
Yeah, what if I've currently got it sleeved up? Like, literally got it sleeved up. Why should I unsleeve it?
What do you want? Do you want to win the tournament or do you want to get points?
You know, let's say I want to win.
Then don't play the deck. because why the deck has results. I saw a tweet. More time I get old, more less I use Twitter and social medias in general, because I don't know, I'm getting old and I start to don't like that every 3 days there is some drama and people
Yeah.
wanted some attention on social medias to feel better or whatever. So I'm not using a lot of Twitter, but the other day I saw a tweet of a guy, I don't remember the name, sorry, um, that posted like, I won with the Moltres package, like the one price attacker deck, right? Um, and he said the deck is trash, but people don't know how to play against it, so I won the tournament, right? So there are a lot of good players playing real life, but the percentage of the top players is really low. So normally you don't gonna face, you want to gonna face in a tournament every single round, one Rahul ready, one Pedro Torres, one top player every single round. No? There will be more base players or more players that play for fun, or they are not that good yet because they don't have skill enough or whatever. So then you can outplay with that deck pretty much a lot of opponents, because you only give one prize. People mess it up a lot against Wisin, people mess it up a lot against Moltres, people mess it up a lot to a lot of cards that you play in that deck. So I guess that deck is pretty good to win a lot of rounds. But when you face a already Operators player, you will probably have a hard time to beat them. Of course, you can beat us, but if we know how to play around that deck, I guess it's impossible to lose for us. But yeah, in a tournament, you probably won't face a lot of top players, so that's why the deck is good to get point.
Yep.
But at some point that you face a really, really top player, then I think we kind of know how to play around the deck. If we prepare against the deck, like with one healing card or one heal, or if you play Mew, you can just psychic loop or stuff like that. So if you want to win the tournament, don't play the deck. If you want to get points, the deck is pretty good because you cannot play a lot of opponents, in my opinion.
You agree, Rahul?
Yeah, I think Pedro hit all the major key points there. One thing to add too is, like Pedro said, if your greatest matchup with a deck like this is meant to be Mew, and you're like, on paper it's like supposed to be like a 70-30 in favor of single price dark, but if you're playing against myself or Pedro or another top player like that, all of a sudden we make it a 60-40 in our favor. It does not bode well for a deck like that. Like, if that's what we can do against EU, and then the other matchups are like, I don't know, a little bit sketchy across the board, it's not a great deck to win the tournament ever. And I also think there's a lot of tie potential for that deck. And I never like decks that tie.
Mm-hmm.
So with those two factors combined, it's never like, I think, a tournament winning deck. But if you're looking to go 5-2-2, maybe 5-3-1, get some points, get out of there, seal up those last 50 points for your invite, it's a fine deck, I think, across the board.
Yeah, that's a good point. The timer with one press attacker deck could be annoying sometimes. That's why Mew and Arceus, they're kind of good because you win in 3-4 turns and you win or lose. And I guess I agree with Raul that you want to win or lose all the rounds. And if you win 6, you can ID the last one. But if you tie before the last 2 rounds, then it's annoying, right? Because another tie is like a loss. So you want to win or
bracket.
lose. Yeah, you want to win or lose the first 6-7 rounds. And yeah, the timer could be a problem. But if you play the deck faster, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, and like, to put it in perspective, like I played against, I think, a pretty decent player playing the single prize dark deck, like at my locals, like I mentioned earlier, and at the 1K, and like game 1 took 47 minutes, and we talked after, and he asked me a bunch of questions like, what if I did this play? What if I did this play? Had I gotten aggressive, what would have happened? And I was like, I would have just done X, Y, and Z. And I mean, when you have a matchup down to a formula, it's not great for that matchup.
That makes sense. A deck like me that has so many options suddenly becomes like, I can just answer anything that you need.
Yeah, you just take like a spreadsheet, basically, like, if X happens, do this. If Y happens, do this. And like, it's very simple because a single prize dark, even though it seems complicated, it's very linear in like actual gameplay.
We also very quickly talk about the timer, not necessarily metagame, but you all have been playing for a while, and it's something I've always prided myself in, even though I've only been to like 7 or 8 regionals or something. I guess that's enough now to say I've been to enough. The timer is like really important. How do you know when to scoop a game to go to the next one? Because it's something, after watching some people stream the Metafy 2K tournament, it seems like people aren't aware that you can concede a game early to maybe finish in 50 minutes. So how do you know when to concede a game in a best of 3? Like, is it just amount of reps? Have you figured out the win condition becomes non-existent? Like, do I just keep playing it out until it's literally non-existent to win, no matter how slim the hope is? Like, where are we actually deciding I need to scoop it up and go to the next game now? Rahul starts off.
I'll start with this one just because I think I'm a little bit more nuts than Pedro. I think he's more rational in terms of when to scoop. For me, I don't like tying. Like unless it's like probably an auto loss matchup, in which case then I could try to take it to a tie, try to steal a game, go 1-1 maybe. But if it's any other matchup, I'd like to rather win or lose because that bracket of ties is nothing. It's not fun. It's not a fun bracket to be in for like 9 rounds of a day potentially. So there's been times where I will literally scoop when the first Ultra Ball was played, or the moment I draw my card for turn on my first turn, I'm like, I don't like this hand. Let's go to game 3. Because sometimes you just know on tempo. Sometimes you know the moment it is like your opponent makes the play, they go up on tempo, you go, okay, I have a hope. It's a very slim hope. Let's see what my top deck is. This is not going to help me. Let's go next. Like, it's very simple like that. Or a certain play will happen, and you're like, I'm pretty locked out of this game. I need like 7 things to go my way. And if you're like, I don't think that's going to happen, I have a better shot at winning game 3 by going first. You scoop it.
To go off that tie bracket thing, just in case anyone's not aware, tying the first round means everyone tied the first round that you're going to be playing against. Most likely. There's a chance you play someone else. And I've done that once. I don't know if either of you have been in that situation before, but it is actually as miserable as people say it is. I got lucky to 2-0 my next 2 opponents to go up to the 2-0-1 bracket, which was like fine at that point, because this is where you reach the people who have to think about every move for a little longer than I think you have to. And it suddenly becomes like, oh, I'm probably going to go 0-0-9 if stuff doesn't happen. So the tie bracket is a real thing. Pedro, when do you know how do you know when to scoop?
It's actually hard, like Rahul said. Sometimes you feel it, right? Like, I guess I got this. I more or less know when to scoop and where to not scoop because of the experience. I guess the experience playing in real life tournaments for a lot of years, like Rahul and I, gives you a lot of a really good mind to know when is the perfect time to scoop to play 2 more games or not, right? It depends of a lot of factors. It depends of your experience, because when I started playing, I tied a lot because I was a new player. I didn't play really fast. I played kind of slow, and sometimes I could win a lot of games, but I tied because of my own fault for not playing faster. So more experience you get, less you tie. So I want to tell to all the people that is new playing or just 1-2 years playing, that don't worry that you will get that point if you continue tryharding. Testing, you will at some point you will play faster and faster and faster, and that won't be a problem. Sometimes when I face a player, as Rahul said, depends on the matchup. If the matchup is super bad, and you, for example, win 1 game, and the second game you are getting completely destroyed, just continue the game because you want a tie instead of a lose.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna scope to win game 3, but if the matchup is really bad, you're probably gonna lose, right? So that's why the opponent needs to probably scoop. If they have a really good matchup and they break turn 1, the opponent should scoop to try to beat me 2 turns, so 2 games. So it actually depends a lot on the matchup, how the matchup is. It actually depends a lot of if you're facing a really known player, or is a really good player, top player, or you maybe face a new player. Because if you say, for example, I face Rahul, that is a pretty top player, and I'm losing, and I know he's not gonna mess it up, I'm probably gonna scoop if I think I can win the matchup to try to win the other 2 games faster. But if, for example, I face a new player that maybe in 2 turns I see he misplayed 2 or 3 times, and I think I have a little win condition, I continue playing for that. So it is a lot of factors, I guess, to consider for when to scoop or not. But sometimes I mess it up. Sometimes I think, all right, I should scoop, and sometimes I regret to not scoop. It's kind of complicated, but with experience, you actually know better when to do it, I guess.
Do either of you wear a watch?
I don't, but I should. I just kind of have like I don't know, you have like this internal timer when you've been playing as long as the 2 of us have. And like judging by just like looking around the room, you can kind of get a good read for like how quickly table judges are walking. Actually, is like a very good indicator of like how close to time we are. If table judges are hawking games more closely, that means we're getting real close. Like we're within probably 5 minutes. And you can hear.
Sorry.
You can go.
I'm really superstitious. I never bring a clock. I should, like Raul said, because if you want to compete at the top high level, you should actually bring a clock, and you should actually bring a little notepad to note your prices. And you need to actually train at home to check your 6 prices quickly and note them. And because sometimes you decide a play depending on the prices. If you have like 4 ultra ball prices and you need an Ultra Ball to continue the game, maybe you do a risky play, but you know you will take at least one Ultra Ball. So it's really important to know the price, because when I play online tournaments, I change my game plan depending on, all right, what I have price. And then, okay, if I have these 3 outs price, I'm going to take a price now. If not, I guess I don't need to take a price yet, and I can set up my board better and stuff like that. So the only tournament I bring a clock, it was the only tournament I did in top 32 that season, that regional, all the season. So I'm really superstitious, and then I didn't bring a clock anymore. But that's just because I have a problem, you know. But yeah, you should, in a top level, you should bring a clock and remember your prices or note your prices and practice at home. Because of course, the first search in real life for people that don't play, normally judges or players allow you to take a little more time on turn 1 to check your prices, only that turn. So faster you train at home to check your prices, you will have more time to play the game, and you won't get any warning for taking 5 minutes to check your prices, right? So yeah, that's my opinion. That you should actually bring a clock and remember or not your prices. You actually should. And I'm training that. I'm training the prices stuff, especially.
That's also been something I've been working on over the pandemic, because I've never been like a good with prizes person. Surprisingly enough, from playing bees all those years, you think I'd be good at it, but it's like you develop a habit, but you sometimes don't get everything, which I need to be better at as well, because there's been plays where I make that I'm like, I should have known this was priced. Like, I 100% should have known this was priced.
That's definitely one of those super feels bad where you're like, one of those best tips for anyone who's like, oh, you always check your specific techs for a matchup. That's like one of the most obvious ones. Back when welder decks were a thing, you're like, how many welders do I have? You know, Arceus decks, you're probably going to count how many V-stars you have. You know, these types of like things. But then there's other cards where it's like, oh, I'm going to need a quick ball for another Arceus, but it turns out I prized one of them. Like, stuff like that is the heart of like, I should have known that. Like, that's like a really important part to my win condition that I'm completely missing here. And that's something that, now that you mention that, I should probably be practicing IRL again, because I'm in PTCGO mode. I played in too many of these stupid tournaments where it's like, oh, prize checking takes 35 seconds.
Let me tell you, playing in that 1K this past weekend in round 1, I was really out of it. I was like, man, this is taking a lot more out of me than I thought. And it's been like 2 years, right? Like, I mean, I think I played something back in like May or August or whatever. But besides that, like, I don't know, like with a deck like Mew, where you have to count literally every single card, it's like, oh my god, this is taking so much energy. So it was a kind of a cruel wake-up call.
No, see, that's where it's easy. You just play all 4 ofs, right? So
yeah,
it's no problem.
I gotta buy bling for the deck. That way it's easier to find them.
Yeah. And actually, because I was like in Rahul mode and Mellow mode, like no in real life tournaments for a long time. The other day I tested with my neighbor, with a friend, and I saw the cards. The cards are too big, right? Because all the time without watching real cards, I was like, these cards are too big, right? Because in the computer you see the cards like super small. I was considering, all right, if I play Arceus, I want to play one Galarian Meowth. If I play Bibarel Engine, it's really cool to draw more cards, but Galarian Meowth, you can check your deck every turn. So you can, all right, if you forgot a prize, you can Galarian Meowth, all right, oh, okay, they didn't have prize, right? Every turn. So I was more happy, instead of to thin the deck and draw more with Bibarel, I was more happy to play that card to check my prices in case I forgot, right?
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the most important part of the discussion, because your boy still has not figured out anything about what he's playing. Do you play Mew or do you not play Mew? So I want you both kind of succinctly, so kind of, a short answer. Why should you play Mew VMAX for the upcoming tournament? Rahul, I want you to start us off on this one. Why should you play Mew VMAX?
If you are one of the best players in the room and you feel incredibly comfortable in your skill level, you should play a deck that has the best matchups against the field, and if you know how to play against every matchup, that should be your go-to. And if you're a newer player who doesn't feel as comfortable in your own deck choice, and maybe Mew is something you've been piloting for a little bit, or something you've been enjoying, it has a very high floor, is how I'll put it. Like when everything is firing on all cylinders, like I mentioned, it becomes an autopilot deck. Yes, winning those games where you normally wouldn't, maybe otherwise, can be a little bit tricky potentially, but there is like a chance for the deck to just like pop off and you don't have to think about it. But if you're one of the best players in the room and you don't have a concrete answer going into Mew, there's no reason not to play Mew if you think you are the best player and if you're going in to win that regionals.
Pedro, what do you say? Why should you play Mew VMAX?
if you practice enough, if you're a good player, like Rahul said, the deck is the best deck in the format. I don't think Mew lose to anything, just lost to your own misplays, bricks that maybe they won't happen if you play a consistent and a really good list. So I guess you should play Mew, guys, because it's the best deck in the format. There is no deck that beats Mew. So if you get enough practice, you literally beat everything. There is at least I don't know any deck that beats Mew yet consistently a best of 3. Match if Mew plays correctly. Like I'm testing, for example, with Nico, with Fabian. When Nico or Fabian plays Mew, they never lose a best of 3 if they don't misplay, right? For putting 2 examples. So yeah, the deck is kind of fun, I guess. You flip some coins with Chromatic, giving emotion. So yeah, you should play Mew, chat.
All right, let's go the opposite direction with this one. And why should you not play Mew VMAX for the upcoming tournament? Pedro, I want you to start us off with this one because you seemed a little more interested in that being an actual concept that people can do. So why should you not play Mew VMAX for Salt Lake City or potentially Liverpool, which is close enough away that I'm pretty sure people are super prepared.
All right, I have so many reasons to not play Mew, so you shouldn't play Mew, chat. All right. Mew is a really hard deck to play well. You need to be a really good player to play the deck correctly. That's an example is when I test with Nico, for example, Fabian, Robin, whatever, against Mew. Well, I forgot what I wanted to say, but yeah, don't play Mew because what I wanted to say. The deck is really hard to play perfectly, right? And I wanted to say, like, the deck, you need to be a really good player for that, really good top player to not misplay. Also, the deck, I feel, is a clone fiesta that you cannot control in a mirror match. Of course, there is outplay, that you cannot play people, of course, yes. But when the opponent just face you, turn 1 KO, turn 2 KO, turn 3 KO, show me the outplay you can do when they just throw everything. And I guess Mew mirrors, you cannot, it's a clone fiesta in my opinion. It's a clone fiesta. It's like no potential outplay. Of course, you can have some tricks, but if the opponent draw well, there is no trick. The opponent just take a prize every single turn, and if the opponent know what to do. Also, Mew will be probably super popular or super tried to be countered, and I don't want to play Mew if I will face 5 mirrors and 4 dark decks because I don't have enough experience with the deck. If I would have enough experience, probably I will just still take the risk. And I think other decks has more outplay potential in mirrors than Mew mirror. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I feel when I play Mew mirrors.
That's how I felt too. I'm not the most experienced Mew player, but it feels like if both players know what to do, you just kind of pray that it works. But Rahul, why should we not play Mew VMAX for Salt Lake City?
I think there's a lot, like Pedro said, a lot of sequencing and a lot of small things that you need to do correctly over the course of a game that you can make a lot of mistakes. And I've watched a lot of players play Mew. I've been, I don't know, grinding a ton of Mew. I've probably logged close to like 300 games of Mew in this format. And I feel like I find myself still making mistakes here and there, or like a decision that I question whether or not it was correct. And so it is a very tough deck, I think, to do correctly. Like I've said a couple times so far, that when it's not just going off, it's a tough deck to pilot correctly. And sometimes there's games that feel really bad, even if you win, and so you start doubting the deck or whatever. In general, that's why I took it to my 1K personally. And I mean, it solidified that I wanted to play it, but like 2 or 3 rounds in, I was like, I'm not feeling good about this. Like my hands have been weird, variance, blah blah blah. And then the biggest thing I can also say is the mirror, like you guys have talked about already, is not the most incredibly skill reliant. It's very formulaic. If both players play X, Y, and Z correctly, it's going to come down to a couple of tech cards and how the matchup goes. I think there is a very exploitable way to beat the Natalie Australia list in the mirror. So if players copy paste that and you stick with the basic energy build, you have a better chance at winning mirror, in my opinion. Like it's like a 5% chance, probably better to win mirror. But I don't know if players will like wise up and play that way correctly. But the mirror as a whole feels like someone's got to make a mistake somewhere. Like I played 2 mirror matches at my 1K, and both times I whiffed, which feels terrible as Mew. And so when I whiffed, the only reason I won them is because I gave my opponents a chance to make a mistake, and they did. They did make a mistake to give me that tempo back. And sometimes that's what you have to hope for, and that felt absolutely terrible. Because on paper, if I was against someone like Pedro, I would get waxed. Like it is over. There is no chance that Pedro ever makes that kind of mistake that those players made. Maybe 75% of players would make that mistake, but if I'm trying to win the event, I can't rely on mistakes. So that's like my biggest, like I don't want to play Mew reason. I have 4 days to convince myself that there's a better deck than me right now, and that's pretty much what all my testing has been going towards. My group's entire testing has just been pouring all our time into Arceus, because Arceus is a very cool card, very flexible, and just seeing if we can find that sweet spot.
Now, because of that, Rahul said, I remembered what I wanted to say 1 second. When I play against Mew on ladder, for example, maybe one day, or I'm 10-0 against Mew, playing like whatever, right, Arceus or whatever deck. And then when I face Nico, Fabian, Robin, they smash me. But it's like, all right, but at least I beat 10 players online. I lost to Fabian, okay, I lost to Nico, it's fine. But I will beat the other 8 players that are not top level. So, yeah, sometimes I'm feeling happy when I beat all the Mew players online because, as Raul said, they misplay one exactly turn and then you win. But when Robin, Nico, Fabian, they never misplay and they play correctly, they show me, all right, I cannot beat you, but there is only one Robin in the tournament. There is only one Fabian. The other 9, I have a chance, all right? So sometimes it's like, maybe I should play a deck that I beat all the non-top players, and if I face a top player, well, I can try to win the coin flip, and then I win too, right?
So you're currently calling out that either Nico or Fabian's going to win Liverpool with Mew VMAX.
Well, we're trying our best.
All right,
maybe.
Are you ready to get in some questions from Twitch chat?
Yep.
Sweet. So first one, what is the most you've spent on a single plush or non-card item at a Pokemon regional?
A regional.
Yeah, so have you purchased anything from vendors that isn't a card?
A card. I remember in Toronto, one of the regionals, I think it was like Toronto 2017, maybe. Whichever one was Buzzrock meta. Buzzrock, whichever one Tord came to, maybe 2018. I like did really bad. No, I lost my win in. I don't know. And I like somehow got coerced into buying this gigantic Meowth that I don't even know where it is anymore. And it was like $80, which isn't like really expensive, but like that's a lot for, you know, just one plushie. It was like this big. I legitimately just like do not remember why I bought it. It was just really funny. And I was like, I want this.
Pedro, what about you? You purchase anything from the vendors that isn't a card?
During one local tournament, a friend and I, we said there was a Bulbasaur, like gigantic Bulbasaur plush. Yo, if one of both wins the tournament, we buy the Bulbasaur, right? And he won, and he bought the Bulbasaur, right? So stuff like that. It could be me, but he won. It was funny, right? Because like he was happy to win the League Cup or the League Challenge, or I guess it was a League Cup. But then he was sad because he needed to spend like 45 or 50 euros in the Bulbasaur. Yeah, it was funny though.
See, and this is one where, because I fly to every regional, because Seattle doesn't have much drivable, technically I guess Vancouver, I've never purchased anything because gotta fit in my carry-on because I do not check a bag, so that ain't happening.
I bought my own deck in one vendor one time. I thought, oh, it's Pedro Torres deck. I will buy. How much for this?
The World's deck, the Rayquaza?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the
cool.
dream right there.
Watching your name in the vendors, that was pretty cool. Now it's like out of stock everywhere, you know. People, a lot of friends want the deck, and I cannot find it anywhere. The Rayquaza deck. It was like looks like was more sold than the Robin Champion deck. Looks like in a lot of shops. It was like all right, all the decks, but the Rayquaza is sold out because Rayquaza is cool, I guess, right?
If I bring you a copy to Worlds, will you sign it for me?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
I already did a lot of times with other friends, so for sure, no problem.
Top Gear asks, are we expecting Pokemon to reduce the requirements for Worlds, or are those close to an invite going to have to go to regionals? So whether you put any thought into the... Well, we still have an extra day that they haven't even announced, to be fair. But what do we think is going to happen with Worlds?
So I've gotten this question a ton when I streamed, or just like in general, because obviously everyone's very concerned. Because we're, I don't know, 5 months out from Worlds and we don't know what it's gonna be. The extra day, big question mark. Can't give you anything on that. I don't know what's gonna happen. We might just all just show up and like fight to the death, and like 6 of us move on. But I think what's gonna end up happening is, as opposed to the invite being lowered, I think the points are going to be inflated, because back in 2017, I think heading into the end of the third IC, we had like maybe like 15 people qualified in like each region, basically. So we were gonna have like a 60-person Worlds, which would have been like one of the tiniest in history. But they inflated all the points. Like they made regionals finishes like plus 20 and like IC finishes like plus 50. So that might happen once again.
Any thoughts, Pedro? Or are you just like, I got my invite, I don't care anymore?
Well, I mean, I'm actually curious, like Rahul said, what's going to happen with Worlds, right? Because they should give information, at least something more. What's going to happen that extra day? What? Yeah, the requirement maybe is going to be like not too much people because of the restrictions. Even if I think, I guess the restriction will be less more time it pass, I guess, because I guess now they need to put like high restrictions because it's the first event and they want that everything goes correctly. But I guess it's just something just occasional for the first event. So probably Worlds will be less restrictions, I wish. But yeah, I actually don't know what's gonna happen. Hopefully good news. But yeah, like Raul said, we should have more info soon because we're in March already, right? Almost April after these 2 tournaments, and no date, no. Maybe they actually rethinking twice the extra day because it's another day that you have more people and you don't want to play too many days, right? So yeah, no idea. But hopefully we have some news soon. Yeah.
The extra day is the one, just as a real quick, that I'm like, oh, I really wish they would have announced it beforehand, because I'm sitting with my 580 points, right? So within realistic shot of whatever that day 2 is for NA, but also I would have to try for it. And it's like, well, do I want to go safe at SLC? I have nothing to gain currently, technically. And so it's like, well, I can just kind of go with the slightly high rolly play and see what happens, versus I'd really like to just get out of day 1 and go to day 2 of the 4-day Worlds. So that's super unfortunate they haven't. Blaine asks, this is for you, Pedro. When will you accept the supremacy of Bird Box?
Well, Bird Box, I think it's a really good deck. I'm actually was testing the Blaine deck that is mainly Arceus with a counter all the meta, right? Like you play Zapdos for fighting weakness, you play Moltres for Mew. But the main problem, yeah, it's like as a player, I always want to cover all the matchups, right? And that decks, you shouldn't beat one press attacker decks, even if they are not really popular. I don't want to just have an auto loss against one press attacker deck because you only run attackers that one hit KO 2 and 3 press attackers, but then you face like a Mad Party, Malamar, stuff like if only one price or the Dark Inteleon deck, and then you have a hard time, right? So if one press attackers disappear completely the format, then the deck is pretty good. It's one of my favorite Arceus variants because it's just what I'm trying to figure out. It's just a smash, KO, and wins, right? So, but yeah, I just want to cover everything, and it's really hard with the deck that only plays 2 price attacker. Yeah.
So both PokeGamer and some Maddie Sims asked about the same question, and it's just, what do you 2 think about the current format? Enjoyable, not enjoyable, acceptable, bad? Where are we at?
Fine. I think in the last 2 years, this is probably one of the better formats we've had. Yeah, I know during the online era, it was hard to gauge how quickly metas would change. But I think like starting at OCIC, the format got very linear in a weird way that I didn't really like. I guess maybe since 2019 Worlds, like the format has been incredibly linear all the way till now. And this is probably the most like variance in terms of what's going on with the format. I mean, yes, everyone's complaining about Mew, but like it is what it is. People just didn't have Twitter during the Zoroark era, apparently. So it's not that crazy bad. And I think with especially like this, we'll see, I think, a healthy evolution of the metagame. Yes, Mew will still be the king. Yes, Arceus will be like the runner-up, and they will probably be battling for the top spot, but we'll see a healthy evolution of the metagame. And then given whatever cards we're getting with Astral, it's like getting like 10 V-stars or something in the next set, which should, in theory, shake up the game as well. A lot of really cool support cards that'll probably last for a while. So I think it's fine. It's acceptable. I have skill expression.
Mm-hmm. Pedro, agree?
Yeah, as a top player, after playing Zorak, I'm feeling sad now because the outplay room you have now is really, really little because we don't have even a stamp now. It was at least something, right? That's why on all the online tournaments I played, almost in every tournament I played 2 stamps and 58 more cards because it's like, all right, if I start bad, at least I can try to win the game. Right now, yeah, it's a little better, like Rahul said, than previous formats in the pandemic. But there is still a little room to outplay. As I said, if I'm going to Liverpool, for example, I'm playing Arceus. If I have a bad day with my coin flips, just to know who starts, and I go second 3 rounds in a row against Mew, I probably will go 0-3 without any chance to try to beat that players, no matter if they are new or not. So that didn't happen before, right? If you play previous format with comeback cards like Stamp or N, for example, that will have Rosan in next set, hopefully fix something, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have a chance, right? You play like Solar Mirror against, if you are a better player, you probably win 9 out of 10 games. But now, if you play a matchup against Mew going second, no matter the deck you play, no matter the opponent is his first day playing Pokemon, he probably will beat you 2-1, not even hard if they just boss your attacker turn 2. So that feels kind of sad, traveling, that spending a lot of money, and coin flip mattering too much, in my opinion, against Mew. So I'm kind of sad about that because I'm considering myself a really good player. And maybe I go 0-3 or 0-4, drop if I lose the coin flip and I face Mew 2-3 rounds. And that feels sad. I guess the format is more sad the better you are as a player. Because if you are a better player, you want to outplay your opponent. But if you have no cards to play your opponent, my mom that doesn't know how to play Pokemon, she can beat me. If I teach her how to play Mew in the morning, he will probably beat me. A lot of games going first. But that didn't happen before with Zorak, for putting one example. Mm. It's acceptable, but yeah, I'm losing a lot of more games than previous format. Like a lot of more games I'm losing because I cannot outplay, because the format is too fast. A lot of games are decided in 2-3 turns. That's better for new players. That's better for non-top players. But I guess, at least for me, I feel it's gonna be harder to top cut in these future regionals and internationals than before, because games are too short and really depending on coin flip, especially against Mew.
That's actually really good to hear for me as someone who's like an above average but not great player, because I just had a very bad testing day with what was my current pick, and then it just was like, oh my goodness, like why am I missing my Arceus energy every single game? You know, it's like statistically this shouldn't be happening, right? And it's like, it's good to hear that you two are having that same experience of like, this just isn't what it was, right? Yeah.
Like, to put in perspective, I think like both Pedro and I like reached our proverbial peaks between 2016 and 18. Like, we both had our best seasons, and I think that was probably the last 10 years where we've had like the most outplay potential in any format with Garbodor and cards like those that just made so much skill expression. And since then, I have lost a lot of confidence in myself, the top 8 regionals, just because there's a little more variance than I'd like there to be. And it feels like even if I do everything correctly, there is games that I won't win and that I don't think should ever be the case sometimes. So I think maybe next rotation might help. I don't know what'll help. I like a lot of the new cards they're releasing that seem pretty cool in the direction they're going, but I have not very high expectations of Salt Lake City. I like, for example, Nico harasses me pretty much daily, and I'm just like, he was like, you're gonna go 0-4 drop with Wormadam, and I'm like, yeah, I probably will go 0-4 drop, but it won't be with Wormadam.
I was gonna say, and to go off the Zoroark thing too, just because this one pops up on social media all the time, people are like, Arceus is the Zoroark of this format and all this stuff, but it's like, to go off of what you all said, Zoroark could miss turn 1 Bridget and still win plenty of times. Yep. Arceus can't really miss the turn 1 Arceus energy attachment or have it not get bossed and still win the game. Like, you can technically, I've done it, but it's not very often.
The game were like 10 turns and now it's 2 turns.
Yeah. In Zoroark, it was like your scariest nightmare scenario was just Buzzrock popping something on like turn 2. And even then you had comeback potential with Mew EX and stuff like that.
Not Snapdragon asks, with an centralized meta, does control become a good play? And Pedro, I know you're more of the control player, I would assume. So is control a realistic thing? Is there a way that we can build a control deck that beats Arceus and Mew consistently, or is that just some copium?
I was trying to figure out any control deck that can checkmate Mew or can checkmate Arceus. We're cooking something, but we still don't have it yet because Mew is Mew. But every time we said, yeah, we lost to Mew, we said, no, there is only one top player playing Mew, the others you can beat them, right? So you can checkmate them. So we're trying something, we're cooking. But yeah, the controls archetype that sits right now, like Duran, for example, if we consider that as a control deck, I think Duran is like the one price attacker dark deck that you can beat a lot of players because people don't know how to play against Durant, but if you face a good player, they will probably just Psychic Loop with Mew without benching almost anything, or double Arceus with Shed and Care between both, or just retreating between both, and beat Durant. But yeah, it was funny because a lot of friends told me, yo, Durant is the best deck because in this online tournament, this guy beats 8 Mews in 10 rounds. And then I play the matchup and I always win with Mew, right? So, of course, control can do well. And yeah, if you don't face a top player, the deck is pretty good. But yeah, I'm sure there is something still for this to discover for sure. Because, for example, in Europe, we have like Alessandro Cremascoli or Sander that I'm sure they will for sure will bring something really cool, and the surprise factor is super important. So after Liverpool, that they will play probably a control deck, I guess. Then we will probably discover something cool. But for now, we didn't discover anything yet to try to have a good chance against Mew and Arceus so far.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because people are always like, oh, you just Eveltal Mew, especially after Natalie's list. You're like, oh, they always win. But it's like, you could just Psychic Leap the energy back in. You better have another win condition for your, which technically they do, right? You can always boss trap over and over again. Like, sure, why not? Something will come up, like you said. Alessandro and Sander are terrifying individuals when it comes to coming up with decks. But like, Mew can just put the energies back in their deck and be kind of fine. Next question is Gyroscope Evie asks, what is your go-to ice cream flavor? I had to throw a curveball in there.
I don't know. I feel like you can't beat a good vanilla.
That's the only incorrect answer I could have imagined.
What's the...
Depends on the day. I like strawberry or chocolate.
Literally anything with chocolate. I'm in.
I like prefer like sherbets and stuff like that, where it's like more sour and they can like be acceptable. So I'm not like really an ice cream guy, but like if I have to go with ice cream, I like pick like a fun flavor or just vanilla.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought vanilla was the worst possible answer, but saying you prefer sherbet became the worst possible answer. Metacham asks a question for Pedro. Are you going to shave for Liverpool?
Yes, I'm a really lazy guy. I only fit sexy for important events like a birthday of a friend or a tournament, right? Because so yeah, there is no tournaments in years, so that's why I'm looking like this. But I will be 10 years younger in Liverpool because I will haircut and shave for sure. Because yeah, that reminds me something that a good friend, a world champion friend, told me. I won't say the name. That because
Who
there is
could
a lot
that
of world
be?
champions, my friends gladly. In real life, tournaments and online tournaments are two completely different games, right? Um, you're playing two completely different games. It's not the same game. When you, for example, when I start playing and I sit in front of Thor, for example, I already lost the game because I was already shaking because he's showing dominance when you face Thor, for putting an example, right? So you just lost just sitting against top players because a lot of players cannot control his nervous when you face a really known player, right? And that's a really important part when you play. Um, so I remember that now, with experience and more years happening, now is some of my opponents who's shaking when they face me, right? Because they start to be nervous because they know I'm a non-player and a top player, right? And that's super important, right? Because if you show dominance, you know what I mean? If you show like that you are a top player, that's actually a really important part when you play in real life tournaments because the psychological part is super important, right? That's not the same than playing online tournaments in pajama against a computer, right? That you know. So yeah, you need to when you play a tournament, you need to prepare all that stuff, and one important stuff is looking really good when you play Pokemon. Yeah.
You got to intimidate your opponents. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
TLDR.
Not in the bad part. I don't want to get DQ. I'm just saying that if you're a top player, a lot of people will just start shaking, and that's
Yep.
natural because that happens in football, for example. When Real Madrid or Barcelona face a little team, all the players, is super nervous. But if you don't face that teams, it happens in every sport, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's an important part. I mean, I don't want to intimidate. They intimidate themselves just when I sit, right? So that's pretty good.
And there was a a conversation I had with I think actually at the last Salt Lake City Regionals with Ricky Gao, if you guys might know him. He used to be like a very good player around the West Coast. He kind of has taken a step back since like the Cash era. But Ricky came up to me after like a lot of people were watching one of my games, and I think my opponent like I made a play that was just like a really big Hail Mary kind of deal, but I like did it with confidence, like no change in expression, just like made the play whatever. And then my opponent basically scooped after that. They had like they had game like on board basically. And I went and took the slip up, and Ricky comes up and goes, "Do people just do that because you're Rahul?" And I'm like, "Sometimes, yes. I don't
Yeah,
know
I mean,
why."
it's a win condition. It's a win
Yeah.
condition actually. So I remember in a League Cup, I faced a friend. I beat my friend like 10-0, and one day he was winning, right? He had game in hand, and he couldn't do that. He's like, Pedro, I guess I have game. I was like, all right, do it. He said, I can't. I'm paralyzed. And that's something that actually happens, right? It happened to me when I won my first regional, expanded on Germany. I was still a kind of new player, not that new, but kind of new. And I had game against Thor. After Thor beating me like 10-0, finally I have game against Thor. And it happened to me. I was 1 minute shaking because I knew I had game, but I couldn't play the cards because the psychological part, the emotional part is super important. And then Thor was like, what's happening? Pedro, it was like, I have game. I was like, what I do? I was like, I can't. Why? I was like, I'm so nervous, right? So that's actually super important, right? So better player you are, it's better for you because a lot of players cannot control that. And it happened to me when I started playing, and now it's happening the other way. But yeah, I actually made one day a Twitch streaming talking about that and how important it is. every part of the game since you sit until you finish the game. And that remembers the Dallas regional that my friend, I don't remember the name, that the one with the gas on Aganadel. Do you remember the name, Raul? That faced the Gardevoir guy. I don't remember now.
I don't
The
either.
guy is from America. Well, I don't. Sorry for that because I don't remember the name. But well, that guy that won the Dallas regional, maybe someone in the chat knows the name. It
Oh, Hunter.
started playing. Sorry.
Was it Hunter?
Yeah, Hunter. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Hunter started playing, and before sitting, he was, showing the hand before sitting, and the other guy was already sitting. So you just starting correctly and showing, or I'm here to play the finals against you, while the other player was just sitting and saying, okay, hello. And I was like, Hunter is winning already before starting the game, just for that. And then when he was playing, he was showing confidence every play he did, right? And I analyzed that game because it's one of my favorite games about psychological part and about the emotional parts. Because for me, Hunter was winning all the game, not only in the paper, was winning in the confidence. When he won game one, he was like, yes, stuff like that. The opponent was super intimidated, and Hunter was just playing the game. But how Hunter was playing the game was the important part, and it was something I analyzed and was pretty cool, because that's something that no one talks about, and I guess it's a really important part of the game. Yeah.
It's just the last tack on to that. I know this point's been going for a while. Is like something that some of my opponents have told me in the past is like, I play with so much confidence. And I know Pedro has probably done the same with Tord. Like the way they play, you play with confidence, you play with speed. That in their mind, they feel like they have to think less and they have to like react to that speed and match that speed sometimes. And you don't have to do this as a player. You never ever have to do this. So like if Pedro plays super fast against me, I will take my time and play my turn. Like I don't need to match his speed. I know that. But
Super,
players
right?
will get caught up in my speed all the time. And they will make mistakes. And this has happened so frequently because if anyone's watched me play, I do not play slow. I know what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it fast.
Yeah, I learned that in chess. In chess, sometimes I play faster my games on chess, and opponents just put nervous just for that. And you need to have a keep calm, like Raul said, and try to take your time. But you kind of, the opponent, because the pace of the game, they start playing faster, and they start to be nervous, and maybe they do misplays, right? I learned that on chess, and happened a lot, and it actually in TCG happens a lot too, because I know I can play fast in the same piece all the game because I know what I'm doing and I know I'm doing correct plays. But maybe my opponent needs more time to think. And like Raul said, Raul has the piece to actually, take his time. But not a lot of people is able to do that because they start to put nervous. All right, he's playing fast. I need to play faster too, and they do some misplays sometimes. Yeah.
I feel like there was so much knowledge in the past couple minutes that like everyone should like go back and re-listen to all of that as well because that was just so good.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Everyone can actually watch the Hunter finals because it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And how Hunter is playing, and when the opponent is actually playing, Hunter is just watching the eyes of the opponent. And something like that, the opponent was like super intimidated. And all the game, I analyzed it on Twitch, and it was pretty cool because a lot of people were super interested to know and to, to gain information about that because it's a super important part of top players to get success in tournaments.
It's going to sound super silly, but like a player from old school, Ryan Stablehouse, I think he's won 6 regionals in the past. Ryan used to tell me that he would sit on his feet, like he would sit in a weird position because he wanted to always be taller than his opponent.
Exactly.
Because he's like, I want to intimidate them purely by being taller than him. Even though the man's like 5'4", he like would sit on his feet to always have the height advantage.
Like the game has so many little factors that actually matters a lot. And not a lot of people use all that factors because they probably think they are not relevant, and they're actually super relevant. They actually won you games. I remember one game I priced triple DCE. One DCE gave me the win, and I priced triple DCE in the regional. I won, right? And then I knew I priced triple DCE, right? But I could say, oh, I priced triple DCE, right? So then I draw the computer search. I show the computer search to my opponent. I was like, yes. And he actually scooped it before I used my computer search. If I will just use, check my deck, he will probably just wait. But I knew I priced triple DCE and I couldn't win the game anymore, I needed to do that to have more chance that my opponent scoop. It actually worked. I just top deck, show the computer sage, said yes. Computer sage, take my deck, and my opponent already scoop. And he never knew I priced my triple double colorless. So it's some stuff that and I'm not cheating. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just doing my best outs to try to win every single round, every single game. And that was the best out to win, showing confidence that I already win the game. And if my opponent didn't scoop, then I price. But he actually scooped it because I show so much confidence in that play, for example.
See, that kind of stuff will not work like if it's like me and Pedro across the table a lot of the time. Because if like Pedro grabs a computer search, I'm like, okay, go next. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that?
Show me the DC.
But at the highest level, like the same thing with scoop. I'll be like, Pedro, show me the DC. I'll scoop right now. And like,
exactly.
and he'll trust what I'm saying because if he shows me the DC, I'm like, okay, that's good. Let's go next because I know at that point it's done.
3 more questions, if y'all are fine with that. This one can be a quick one, but I gotta ask for my homie. Sancho asks, what about Gormandized Snorlax and Gengar? Yay or nay?
No.
I don't think so. I guess it's better to just go 4 offs of Quick Ball, Ultra Balls, Battle BP Pass, Research Marnie, than taking a turn. So just try to be fast. If you go second, you have 8 supporters to draw. If you go first, you have 8 balls plus 4 Battle BP Pass plus your 4/4/4 basics, in my opinion.
Dunsparce OP asks, sell me on why Malamar is the play. And they're talking about the Rapid Strike, not the Mali VMAX, which is not. So Rapid Strike Mali. And both of you have been very down on it. Before we started the podcast, I said, and you were just like, no, do not play that ever. So you can also unsell us on Rapid Strike Mali if you want.
I can't really sell you on it. I think it will win games, and I think it's like decent as a deck. I just think it has way too many close calls. It has the same factor of sometimes I'm not going to hit the damage numbers I need. Decks are playing too much healing at the moment. And also time. Time is a huge, huge issue when coming to decks like that for me. Because even though you're not actually doing a lot, you need to, like, you're going to be level balling on your own turn. You're going to be Evo Instancing on your own turn. You're going to be Cynthia's Ambitioning on your own turn. Octillery Searching on your own turn. You yourself are probably taking 2 to 3 minutes on just searches on your own turn before you even get to your attack. So even if your opponent is not, like, playing slower or something, you are eating your own clock, and that doesn't feel good.
I agree. I guess timer is the main problem. I don't consider the deck for now. I started playing the deck today on streaming. I play Malamar, and in like 3 hours, I literally beat everything other than Jolteon. I faced like 2 Jolteons that I lost because I don't play Manaphy. But I beat Muse, Arceus, and felt super easy to beat them. But I feel in real life, best of 3. I guess like Rahul said, timer could be a problem. And it's actually a deck that is not for me, I guess, because I'm 30 years old and it's really stressful to whiff 1 card for the knockout, right? It's like best pick win, right? You need to just Cynthia. It's like, all right, I need 7 of these 8 cards or I lose. And it's too much stress for me. I prefer to Arceus attach pass and then Arceus the double turbo research and play. Yeah, Malamar is cool, right? Of course, like sometimes I lose, sometimes I win against Malamar. But it looks like so stressful. You need to hit exactly cards because if you whiff 1, you cannot win anymore. But mainly it's not like that. It's like the timer. I guess timer could be a problem. But then I talk about that with Limitless guys, that maybe Malamar take less time in real life than online when you, for example, attack and start to shuffle, the opponent start their turn. But yeah, timer I guess could be a problem in general. And that's why we talk about the Dark Inteleon 1 price attacker deck. Of course, if you face a player that plays in a normal piece or fast piece, is fine. But after 2 years without the events, I expect a lot of new players.
Yeah.
That is probably his first tournament. Even Rahul and I will probably play slower than 2 years before because we don't have that experience and that practice of playing every single weekend. So yeah, I guess that could be a problem. But if you practice a lot, I always said if you practice a lot every kind of deck, you can play whatever because you know you will play a lot of fast. But Malamar, you actually need to think and do the maths perfectly, and that's actually I'm always going on time. The ding stuff in TCG or imagine in real life is gonna be more stressful, right?
You better be very good at multiplying by 4. I was helping a friend test the deck, and like he is good at math. He is smart. He is a good trading card game player. But the amount of time he had to sit there and count out his cards to kind of like make sure, like, oh, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, which is something you can do IRL and not TCGO, right? So that is technically possibly faster, but also if you're taking 30 seconds to just double check your math multiple times, that's a long time every single knockout. So yeah, Rapid Strike Mally is I think it's a very good deck. I think it's a
good deck.
I said this earlier on stream or on a different stream, and I think it is a very North American deck, and I think it will do well. It blows stuff up. It pops stuff in the face, which is all, it's the baby Blowns, right? Like, it's definitely something that I think will show up at SLC.
I will not be playing anything with baby Blowns again.
Yeah, it's, don't play it. Or do play, actually do play it, because I'm 90% sure whatever I play is going to beat it. Sharon's Care against that deck is quite nice.
Yes.
Yeah, when I play Sharon Care, it's like, if they hit 320 my Arcus, I scoop. If not, I win, right? It's most likely like that.
That's exactly what it is.
Luminion, you can Luminion loop twice and then wins. If you play Dark, we play Croat BMAX to hit and run every single turn, so you win. So mainly all the Arcus variants. Well, the other day I played on the Metafy the Stowed Land to beat Malamar, so you can zigzag on Inkay and Stowed Land for 2 prices the Inkay. So every deck I play, I touch for Malamar, and it becomes to, all right, in the water I Luminion loop, in the dark I BMAX loop, in the non any of them I just Stowed Land. Can you 320 my Arceus? Then I scoop. If not, I win, right? So sometimes it becomes to that because Malamar are gonna just hit the active forever.
Also, best win condition. All Mally players, if you do not already know this, you have to learn to play around it. Quick shooting, scoop up net, quick shooting, KO Inkay off the bench, KO active Mally. That is, your single prize deck just lost both of its attackers. And that is something Arceus and Teleon can not only do, but do literally every game, because you're not disrupting their hand. So you better have a way out of triple quick shooting pinging in Inkay off the bench.
Yeah, that's what I feel playing Malamar today. I only lost to snipe bench. If I don't brick and people don't snipe my bench, I win normally against every deck, right? It's a good deck.
Mr. Darthbean asked, last question. Natalie had her lucky banana bread that she ate before regionals. Do y'all have your own superstitions? And where are we getting banana bread on Saturday? So do y'all have your own pre-regional superstitions?
I have countless superstitions.
Same,
I'm take 1 hour saying all of them. But time to time, I'm trying to that this superstition doesn't hopefully don't affect me like before, that I was like super stressed. Now I guess I take the things with more calm, but I still have a lot of superstitions. For example, one of them is before a tournament I just eat whatever, not a lot because I don't want to feel full, but maybe just a chocolate, something to have a sugar in my brain to try to think better and faster, right? So any tournament I play, I mean, don't do that, okay? That Pikachu trophy is not that fault, right? It's my own fault. When I play a tournament, but don't do that until if I don't lose. I mean, I don't eat until I lose a game, a round. Sorry. So my friends start to be worrying to me when like, are you fine, Pedro? Because you are 6-0. That means you are 7 hours without eating. So yeah, that's one of the superstitions I have. I don't eat until I lose a round, and sometimes I don't lose a round of the day, and then I'm super hungry at the end of the tournament, right? But yeah, that's one of them I have. But don't do that. Just eat between rounds if you can, like something.
What are yours, Rahul?
So the one that everyone kind of knows that I do is I will not play without pink dragon shields. historically, I know it's like really stupid, but like every tournament I've done poorly is without pink dragon shields, and I always blame the reason that I lose on stream is because they because dragon shields are reflective on stream, so they switch them out to eclipses, and they never have pink eclipses. I always ask, so I end up getting put into like red or blue eclipses, and I never ever went on stream when I go play with these eclipses. So it feels terrible. And then I listen to the same song all day. I will not switch it up. Like I will pick a song at the beginning of the day, whatever the vibe is. It will range anywhere from like hard rap to just like a chill EDM beat or something, and that'll be like my vibe for the day. So I will like either love or hate the song by the end of it. And so like personally, when I go into my playlist, there are songs where I have like very fond memories of tournaments. But I will like have it on loop the entire tournament. Like I will not deviate from the song. I feel like if I move from the song, whatever like vibe I have is gone for the day. Like whatever momentum I have is gone. And it just I don't really get it. But at that, and I also do the same thing Pedro does with food. I just don't eat. I prefer to over caffeinate otherwise. So I'll have to see how that works out for me because I don't normally eat breakfast or anything. But I'm gonna try to eat like a decent breakfast before I head in, so I don't like die. Because every time, like I will eat the moment I lose, and sometimes or a tie. I guess I'll do when I tie, and I don't really want to pay like $8 at a Starbucks for like a piece of bread.
Yeah, no, another thing I have, like I always use the same sleeves, like same color, same brand, stuff like that. Always when I start a game, every time I start a game, I need to put I need to put the dices in a proper way, because if not, I start to become nervous, stuff like that. So the friends that know me before starting the game, they move my dices, for example, right? They know that's one of the win condition before starting the game, right? As I said, everything counts when you play a tournament. And my friends knows that if they move my dice before the round, they know I'm struggling a bit. So that's I have countless stuff like this, but that's some of them.
I have to share my two real quick. The first one, I always walk into a place with a jacket and I have to take it off right when I sit down for round one. That is always, I don't know why. I guess because it's wintertime here and all the stores are warm enough where that's just become a thing that I have to do. Friends always say it's the intimidation factor for the tattoos and the muscles, but you know what? I'll take whatever one works there. And the second one, which is going to stress out a lot of people that listen to this, I will not play a single game the day before, and I will not touch my deck the entire day before the tournament. I have twice in my life played games or touched the deck or anything. The one time was Santa Clara Regionals, the only regional I did not earn CP in, and the other time was right before the top 16 for Players Cup into the World stuff, with a very favored bracket in the winner's bracket, no way I lose, and I tested and I lost. So, because of that, I will not touch the deck, I will not play a single game. That it's decided Thursday night, it's sleeved up in my backpack, sitting in my car, ready to go on the plane. That is, I will never ever touch a deck because it didn't work twice, and it worked the other 6 or 7 or whatever times.
Yeah, I guess all this stuff is a defense mechanism of our brain to feel better in general, to feel more confidence.
Yeah.
So don't worry, chat, if you have a lot of superstitions, because I have probably a lot of them. I cannot even count them, and I had success results. It's like if you like tennis, chat, Rafael Nadal from Spain, he's crazy playing. Every time he needs to do million stuff before playing every single ball, and he's Rafael Nadal, right? So yeah, don't feel bad. I guess that everything feels you better, and you feels you more confidence to play the game, and you are not if you feel better with that, just don't worry. If it's something about you, of course, if it's something not with other people, right? I also have a charm that no one's know, that I always bring with me to every tournament. I will only show that charm to the world if one day I win Worlds. That probably won't happen, so no one will know my charm that helped me to get success, I guess.
You'll get there. After me, of course, but you'll get there.
All right, that's perfect.
So, Rahul, if the people want more of you, where can they find more from you?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun being here. I always like talking to Pedro and like talking to you. It's always a fantastic time. You can find me at Rahul Reddy. It's just my name on YouTube. And on Twitter, it's the Flea, THEFL, and then 4 E's. Those are pretty much the main places you'll find me. Saying some stupid stuff, doing some stupid things, and that's pretty much it.
Pedro, what about you?
As I said, well, thank you for having me. It was really fun. It was my second time here, I guess. It was pretty good. I always have fun. One of the more things I love more about content creation, like you're doing now, a really good work with your Twitch channel, YouTube, and the podcast, probably the best, or if not one of the best for sure, is to talk. I guess, especially in these times after 2 years with no contact with anyone. I guess we do a really good work for people that they are alone at home or they don't have friends or they just feel sad. And if this content that you do in Mellow helps some people to feel better or to have a good day, we're actually doing a lot of work that, of course, we are not in the level of psychological people that helps you like, in a big problem, but we're doing a little part. And if people listening this or watching you, Mellow, feels better or because they are alone or whatever, especially in these times that a lot of people lose so much familiars and friends because of the virus, is pretty good. And it's actually no value, right? What we're doing. So thank you for that. I really like to talk. I guess people really enjoy these talks, what is pretty good. And yeah, as I said, I'm trying to not use social medias more time it passed, so I'm kind of not using any social medias anymore. But I guess I will post on Twitter sometimes after playing a tournament, I guess. So you can find me on Twitter, Sininchi, and I'm doing Twitch every day now, testing for regionals. I will probably leave Twitch next month, but we have like 1-2 months still on Twitch so that you can find me on Twitch TV, Sininchi too. And yeah, you can also find me. I do coaching. You can just send me a private message or just book on MetaFi. I had a lot of coaching sessions these days because of the regionals, and people normally enjoy them. So if you want to have a last talk tournament or just some coaching sessions, you can follow me on MetaFi. So yeah, it's mainly Sininchi in Twitter, Twitch, and MetaFi. Yeah, you can find me there.
Rahul, since you didn't mention it, do you also coach?
I do. I kind of forgot about that. I've been also like Pedro having a very busy week myself as well. It's been very exciting to see a lot of newer players getting coaching and being enthusiastic about the season. It is a little disheartening to tell them that as a newer player, it'll probably be difficult to get their invite unless they pop off. But a lot of people seem very enthusiastic about like going from that casual pickup over the last 2 years into competitive and like actually traveling and making that effort. And that really, is what we do this for, right? Like we do this because we want to grow the game and we all love the game and it's a huge part of our lives. So the bigger the game gets, the better for us.
And of course, I can't follow everything that Pedro said because that was amazing. But thank you both for being on. You can find myself at Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at mellow_Magikarp. And this has been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast. We'll catch you all next week.